Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Yesterday, at the Law and Justice Party headquarters on Nowogrodzka Street in Warsaw, there were discussions about the future of the Marshal of the Sejm, Marek Kuchciński, in the light of the airplane scandal, the revelations that he had used an official government plane for non-official flights on numerous occasions. Today, during a meeting with the Law and Justice Party president, Kuchciński announced his resignation.
Podczas mojej działalności nie złamałem prawa, ale ponieważ
Marek Kuchciński announced his resignation from the post of Speaker of the Sejm during a conference which took place on Nowogrodzka Street. The marshal was accompanied by Law and Justice Party chairman Jarosław Kaczyński, who stated that the attitude of the Speaker of the Sejm is proof that Law and Justice does implement the slogan "Listen to Poles, serve Poland." Jarosław Kaczyński also said that Kuchciński did not break the law. He further stated that since public opinion is demanding strict regulations regarding the flights of government officials, such rigors will indeed be introduced, and announced that they would be prepared soon. There was also an appeal, mainly to journalists and the media, for fair and equitable treatment of government officials. President Jarosław Kaczyński recalled the example of former Prime Minister Donald Tusk and the number of flights he made to Gdańsk while performing his function.
Since the public has evaluated my conduct negatively, I decided that I will no longer be able to perform my function. The Marshal did not break the law, nor did he break any customs. The rules must be the same for everyone. During his candidacy, the chairman of the Council of Ministers, Donald Tusk, made 281 flights to Gdańsk within 6 years and 10 months. I would like the public to take interest in this as well.
As announced by Sejm Deputy Marshal Ryszard Terlecki, Marek Kuchciński's successor will be appointed tomorrow. However, no further details are known and the final result will be known tomorrow. There is speculation of 3 possible candidates: Deputy Marshal Ryszard Terlecki, Deputy Marshal Małgorzata Gosiewska and Małgorzata Wasserman, who was the head of the investigation commission that investigated Amber Gold.
Szefową komisji śledczej, która badała sprawę Amber Gold.
After weeks of speculation, the leader of the Kukiz 15 movement, Paweł Kukiz, and the leader of the Polish People's Parties, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, have officially announced their electoral alliance. However, not all MPs from the Kukiz 15 movement are happy about it. Yesterday, one of them, Andrzej Maciejewski, handed in his resignation, while the deputy leader of the party, Jerzy Kozłowski, will do the same tomorrow.
The leader of the Kukiz 15 movement, Paweł Kukiz, has announced postulates which the Polish People's Party accepted. The postulates concern 3 areas: civil, economic, and anti-corruption. Members of the Kukiz 15 movement are not happy about this decision.
To nie jest tak, że myśmy zawarli to porozumienie tuż przed wyborami.
We didn't sign this agreement just before the elections. It's not like that. We signed this agreement because I got a chance to meet the leader of the Polish People's Party. There are many different kinds of people everywhere, but when I realized that the leader of the party is a very good person and that his priority is the common good, I didn't hesitate.
Na czele tej partii stoi człowiek przyzwoity.
The leader of the Polish People's Party said that the election program's ideas and values are what connects both parties.
We will stand for elections right after the president presents the announcement regarding the registration of the election committee.
According to Kukiz 15 movement member Paweł Szramka, running for the elections from the Polish People's Party's lists is a technical solution.
Political parties should talk with each other. If the system was different, then every MP would run for elections on his own. He wouldn't have to ask the leader of the party to do so.
Some of the Kukiz 15 movement MPs have decided to leave the party. According to Ryszard Czarnecki from the Law and Justice Party, Paweł Kukiz's decision is political suicide.
W swoim czasie uzyskał świetny wynik w wyborach prezydenckich.
There was a time when the Kukiz 15 movement had a great election result, but now they have entered into a coalition with a party that has totally different views.
Nawiązuje polityczny romans.
The convention of the Polish coalition created by the Polish People's Party and the Kukiz 15 movement is due to take place on August 17th.
Following the shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio, US President Donald Trump has not ruled out the possibility of tightening gun laws in America. Changes could include carrying out more thorough background checks on those who wish to buy firearms. Congress unanimously agrees with the president's proposed changes.
After weekend shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio, Donald Trump announced he would tighten current gun law regulations.
Well, I'm looking to do background checks. I think background checks are important. I don't want to put guns into the hands of mentally unstable people or people with rage or hate, sick people. I don't want to, I'm all in favor of it.
The American presidents can count on the support of both parties in Congress in this matter. Donald Trump visited El Paso and Dayton, where the shootings took place over the weekend. In both cities, his visits were accompanied by protests accusing Trump of inflaming tensions with anti-immigrant and racially charged rhetoric.
What a job you did. Thank you, sir. There are a lot of heroes. A lot of people did just incredible work. Now we're going in, I believe, Chief, and say hello to some of your folks. Yes, sir. This is one of the most respected men in law enforcement. And I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much. Thank you.
After the weekend shootings, Americans fear for their own safety. Panic broke out yesterday among pedestrians in Times Square. People mistook the roar of motorcycle engines for gunshots and rushed to escape. Several people were injured. On Saturday, a 21-year-old man with a rifle opened fire at a Walmart in El Paso, Texas. Less than 13 hours later, America saw yet another mass shooting. The attacker opened fire at one of the bars in Dayton, Ohio. In total, 31 people were killed in both shootings. Since the beginning of the year, there have been 32 mass shootings in the United States.
There are at least 14 dead and 145 wounded following the explosion of a car bomb which took place in Kabul, the capital of Afghanistan. The Taliban, who control half the country's territory after 18 years of martial law, have admitted to carrying out the attack.
The total number that we have so far, 14 of our citizens martyred, 145 wounded. 92 of them are civilian, and the rest are police. From last night operation, we believe it was ISIS Khorasan province. We've killed 3 of the terrorists.
Continued Taliban attacks indicate that they unfortunately have no commitment to peace. Any Taliban attack will impede the peace process. The blast took place in the west of the city during the morning rush hour, with the Taliban claiming that a recruitment center had been targeted by a suicide bomber. The bomb went off when the vehicle carrying the device was stopped at a checkpoint outside the police station, said Interior Ministry spokesman Nasrat Rahimi. There has been no let-up in violence in Afghanistan despite the Taliban and the United States appearing close to a historic pact for US troops to withdraw in exchange for a Taliban promise that the country would not be used as a base for extremists to plot attacks.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, Poland Daily Business and more programmes. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Business Weather. Tomorrow, the forecast calls for showers in most areas of the country, with thunderstorms in Gdańsk, Olsztyn, and Białystok. The temperatures will vary between 21 to 22 degrees in the north, and in the south, we can expect it to be warmer, with temperatures of 26 degrees in Wrocław, 27 degrees in Katowice and Kraków, and 25 degrees in Rzeszów. The only cities that will not see rainy skies will be Szczecin and Katowice. In Europe, Athens is once again the warmest capital at 38 degrees and clear skies, and Rome will be the runner-up at 36 degrees with also clear skies. The northern regions of Europe will see rain with 21 degrees in Oslo and Stockholm, 18 degrees in Helsinki, 21 degrees in Vilnius and Moscow, 19 degrees in Dublin, and 24 degrees in London. We can also expect rain in Lisbon, Paris, and Minsk, with temperatures of 25 to 27 degrees. That is all for tonight. I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
You're watching Poland Daily Business, and we will talk tonight about upcoming visit of President Donald Trump here in Warsaw. 3 weeks from now, we will witness great celebrations of the outbreak of the Second World War. That date is very momentous, very important to us Poles, because every Polish family was affected by this conflict. 3 weeks before the president's visit in Warsaw, 88 American senators sent a letter to Mike Pompeo urging Poland to produce some money for Holocaust remembrance. How do you understand this? What do you think about that? Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University is our guest, sir. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for hosting me. I think it's a letter of reminder, because the senators have already produced 2 letters before, urging the Secretary of State to take care of this issue, and this is a letter of reminder. Mike Pompeo has a few more months to produce the result, a kind of report, how countries of Terezin Declaration are really meeting the expectations and the obligation of compensating the victims of Holocaust. In the autumn, the report should be ready. Of course, the Terezin Declaration is the most important for Poland, because Poland is, of course, the main target of this campaign to force countries in Central Europe to pay money to the victims of Holocaust. Let's remember, however, that Poland already met its obligation to compensate the victims of Holocaust from the United States, because we signed an agreement on July 18, 1960. And this agreement obliged Poland to pay $40 million to the United States, and the United States took on itself all obligations to compensate the victims of the Holocaust or the families of Holocaust victims. So, to some extent, the issue, the matter is closed. Deal was done, and Poland is not anymore under an obligation to pay any money to the United States. We have also signed 12, 13 agreements with European countries to compensate those countries, like, for example, Holland or Denmark, for the property nationalized during the communist times. It was so-called indemnity treaties, which Poland signed in 1950s. So, to some extent, the matter is solved. However, we see this campaign against Poland instigated by Jewish groups in the United States as a way to force Poland, or to extort money to some extent, to force Poland to pay money. And we see the same scenario which had been applied to Switzerland, for example, or by Lawrence Eagleberger committee in 1990s to insurance companies to force on us the indemnity payment. But let's remember that Poland, and it's different matter to Switzerland, had already paid money to the United States. So now it's turn for the United States to pay money to any Holocaust victims, if there are any.
Well, there are many issues in that letter. The first is that the United States is trying to take care of every single victim of Holocaust, regardless of their state belonging during the 1940s, or whether they were United States citizens during the war or after, until 1960. The second issue is whether the Terezin Declaration has any lawful consequences concerning the property rights.
No, it's just a soft law. And let's remember that if the United States is trying to speak on behalf of the whole world and the victims of Holocaust, so it means it's extraterritorial reach. They are trying to take care of everybody in the world.
So they apply the local United States law outside of the border of the United States.
So it's a little bit bizarre. It's even ridiculous. And let's remember that this law passed by the Senate and by House of Representatives, it's also a little bit strange from legal point of view. We can enumerate several legal objections to this law, which is called Act 447 in case of Senate, and Act 1226 in case of House of Representatives. Why? Because also in this case, in case of 447 and 1226, Congress goes outside of its bounds and tries to regulate issue which should not be regulated by the Congress, because the Congress have its rights, powers, prerogatives stipulated clearly in Article 1 of the Constitution. So I believe this act, this law is unconstitutional because commerce can't regulate issues of printing money or, for example, declaring war or regulating commerce, but not regulating issues relating to Holocaust issue. In addition to this, this law is also unconstitutional because it's discriminatory to other victims of extermination, German extermination during the Second World War. Why only Holocaust issues are enumerated in this law? Why the United States government is not trying to protect also interests of American citizens of not Jewish origin? We have Polish victims of extermination living still in the United States, or Hungarian victims, or I don't know, Ukrainian victims or Russian victims. Why they are not trying to take care of those people as well who are living in the United States? Only the Jewish American are protected and they are going to be rewarded with compensation, and the United States is only keeping an eye on those issues relating to these people.
As usual, timing is everything. We are 3 weeks before the visit of President Donald Trump. Does the lobby who stays behind this letter tries to exert some pressure on Poland by publishing it right now? Because we've already heard that this letter has been prepared in May before the President Andrzej Duda's visit in Washington.
Of course, the timing is not accidental. Everything is well geared and well prepared. It's like a military operation. We have just 3 weeks before the historical visit to Poland, the second in 2 years, and the second meeting between the Polish and American president in 10 months. And someone is trying to...
Just wrapping it up, do you expect that this will have any effect on the visit?
I don't think so, because Donald Trump is transactional president. He knows what is important. He has some businesses to do, deals to be made. He wants money from the corporations which are going to support him during the election. And for example, energy companies and military companies are ready to help him. So, and Poland is going to buy LNG and military supplies from the United States. So I think those interests will prevail over a narrow interest of Jewish American groups in the United States.
Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University, thank you very much for this insight. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Business Weather. Tomorrow, the forecast calls for showers in most areas of the country, with thunderstorms in Gdańsk, Olsztyn, and Białystok. The temperatures will vary between 21 to 22 degrees in the north, and in the south, we can expect it to be warmer, with temperatures of 26 degrees in Wrocław, 27 degrees in Katowice and Kraków, and 25 degrees in Rzeszów. The only cities that will not see rainy skies will be Szczecin and Katowice. In Europe, Athens is once again the warmest capital at 38 degrees and clear skies, and Rome will be the runner-up at 36 degrees with also clear skies. The northern regions of Europe will see rain, with 21 degrees in Oslo and Stockholm, 18 degrees in Helsinki, 21 degrees in Vilnius and Moscow, 19 degrees in Dublin, and 24 degrees in London. We can also expect rain in Lisbon, Paris, and Minsk, with temperatures of 25 to 27 degrees. That is all for tonight. I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Dobry wieczór Państwu, Emilia Pobłocka, witam bardzo serdecznie.
Good evening, my name is Emilia Pobłocka. I'd like to warmly welcome you.
Wyjątkowe i
Our meeting place is very special, especially for my guest. She is the world-famous opera singer, mezzo-soprano, and director of the Warsaw Chamber Opera, Mrs. Alicja Węgorzewska. You specialize in the role of shorts. This is a very interesting term. Can you explain it to our viewers?
We can go by the definition according to how it's written on Wikipedia. On the other hand, this is most often referred to as mezzo-soprano.
Do młodych głosów mezzosopranowych.
Could you tell us more about your past?
Przeszłość to jest tak zwane
So my past. This is the so-called Hausen role or role in trousers. And many composers wrote a mezzo-soprano part with a male role in mind, meaning that the lower female singer played a man on stage with a soprano.
Ten niższy głos kobiecy grał mężczyznę na scenie z sopranistką.
Czy w życiu Pani
Do you find it difficult to take on male roles?
podejmuje męskie role?
O, i takie pytanie, no proszę bardzo. No sam chyba fakt, że gdzieś jestem na etapie...
Well, that's a very good question. I was probably lost in my roles multiple times, carrying the persona to the stage of the second institution in which I am the director. Sometimes this male aspect of life even takes over my identity, but I certainly hope that I do not lose my femininity.
Bo jednak kobieta na koniec dnia chce...
Because at the end of the day, a woman wants to feel like a woman. Even if I get to feel strong, independent, and be firm in my decisions, at the end of the day, I also need to have the sensitivity that defines me.
Natomiast też trzeba mieć w sobie to ciepło.
They say that about 90% of artists are people that are unhappy and do not have families. This is caused by constant stress and trips. You, however, have managed to build a happy family, to have a daughter. Please tell me, what is the way for happiness of Alicja Węgorzewska?
To jest tak, że Czasami te
You know what? It is important, however, to be able to somehow separate working life from private life. It's like sometimes chasing another role. Questions: will I be cast in the foreground? If the director of the theater changes, change in the theater is at the passing of each director. Every director comes and has a different vision of the theater, a different vision of production casts. We're often met with this. In addition, it is hard to put off the fact that being a woman also factors into it, because for a man, things are a bit easier, right? Their wives can stay at home with the children while he travels and makes a career. However, it is very difficult for a woman. I have many friends who did not decide to start a family, and if they started a family, it is one without children.
Założyły rodzinę, to brakuje w tej rodzinie dzieci i nie z powodów takich, że nie mogą mieć, bo też...
And not because they cannot have them. Situations often put those in our line of work in a hard place where people have to give up on the family aspects. Thus, the work of a traveling performer is most often synonymous for loneliness. The life often leaves us with the fact that despite having adoring fans in photo shoots of the shows, we often don't have anyone to leave them to.
Ich pozostawić oprócz oczywiście wspaniałej publiczności.
Vedrò mentre io sospiro, felice al servo mio. È un ben ch'infantesio che posseder dovrà. Vedrò per amore unita un fine oggetto, desto un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò mentre io sospiro, felice un servo mio. Vedrò che un ben ch'io desio il posseder dovrà. Vedrò per manca amore unita un vile oggetto, che desto un affetto che per me poi non ha, che per me poi non ha. Vedrò, vedrò, a non lasciarti in pace, non può questo contento. Non nascesti autate, tu non nascesti autate per dare a me tormento e forse ancor per ridere mia infelicità. C'ha la speranza sola che le vendette mie quest'anima consola e
Dziękuję pani za rozmowę.
Thank you very much for the interview. Thank you for bringing us into the world of opera, which is a beautiful and magical place. But to experience it, you have to come and see it for yourself.
Alicja Węgorzewska, dyrektor Warszawy.
Our guest was Alicja Węgorzewska, the director of the Warsaw Chamber of Opera. Thank you so very much for joining us, and see you again.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are visiting the Pawiak Prison Museum in Warsaw. This prison is one of the most famous places for Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, where 100,000 prisoners passed through these gates during the war, of which 47,000 were murdered. This prison is one of the most well-known sites of Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, with around 100,000 prisoners passing through its gates during the war, and 37,000 of them were murdered. Join us as we explore the history of one of the most brutal aspects of the German occupation. So we have previously stated that the prison was built in the 1830s, but after 1918, when Poland regained its independence, it finally was managed by the Poles for the first time, and I was wondering how it was functioning under the Polish governance.
Od listopada 1918 roku Pawiak przede wszystkim sprawował funkcję więzienia śledczego. Był miejscem odosobnienia zarówno osób oskarżanych o...
From November 1918, Pawiak primarily served as an investigative prison, a place for isolation for both people accused of committing common crimes, criminal offences, and, especially in the 20s, an investigative prison for people engaging in political activity that undermined the independence of the Polish state. The Pawiak itself changed in relation to the Tsarist times. It changed in relation to the partitioning times, definitely in favor of the conditions in which the detainees were staying. The prisoners had a lot of privileges. The prison regulations guaranteed visitations with relatives, guaranteed the right to correspondence, and prisoners could also use the facilities existing in the prison itself. Some of them worked in workshops located in small buildings and pavilions located along the prison wall. These were shoemaking and tailoring workshops and carpentry and locksmith workshops. Some prisoners took advantage of the possibility of supplementing their lack of education in Pawiak, hence the schoolrooms and lecture rooms within the prison. The prisoners took at least a 15-minute walk every day. Men in the paving courtyard at the back of the building and women in the square at the back of Serbia. In addition, prisoners could use the prison library. They could also subscribe to the published press.
Oprócz tego więźniowie mogli korzystać z więziennej biblioteki, mogli również prenumerować wydawaną na bieżąco prasę.
The activities of the Polish underground, struggling for Poland to regain independence, increased significantly in the years before and during the First World War. As a result, many of the most prominent figures of the Polish national movement would at one point or another have seen the inner walls of the Pawiak prison. You were telling me that after the outbreak of the First World War, a lot of the members of the Polish independence movement were prisoners here by the Germans. And I also understand that before the First World War, there were also prisoners of the Russians. I can imagine that a lot of the members of the Polish independence movement who were imprisoned here became elites of the independence Poland. And I was wondering if you can tell me if there are any examples of said members.
Warto wspomnieć tutaj przede wszystkim o więźniach uwolnionych w kwietniu 1906 roku. O 10 z Pawiaka.
I think it is worth mentioning the prisoners freed in April of 1906, the 10 from Pawiak. This whole operation went down in history as a very bold escape from prison walls. The freeing of the prisoners was prepared by members of the Polish Socialist Party during the reign of Józef Piłsudski, later the Marshal of Poland. The operation was commanded by Jan Jur Gorzechowski, a member of the PPS militant organization during the First World War, an officer of the Polish legions, and in independent Poland, a general of the Polish army. The preparation themselves lasted several weeks. The fighters, independence activists, prepared themselves under the watchful eye of a Russian officer who favored their movement, a man who, thanks to his conviction, began to act against the power of Tsardom. Uniforms necessary to carry out the action were provided by Warsavians. Documents were faked by the partisans. The men from the PPS dressed up as a Tsarist policeman. During the night from 23rd to 24th of April, they got to the Pawiak area using a false order in which 10 independence activists sentenced with the death penalty were mentioned by name. In this way, the men caused the release of members of the PPS and activists of the proletariat. They were to be released by the prison authorities under the guise of transporting the 10 to the Warsaw citadel. The whole action was carried out in such a believable manner that the Russians themselves provided a carriage intended for the transport of the detainees. Jan Jur Gorzechowski performed as the cavalry captain Budberg. He pretended to be a German aristocrat in the Russian service. He ordered the coachman to, after leaving this prison, after crossing the Pawiak gate, turn in the opposite direction than the intended path under the guise of picking up another detainee from another police station. The prison vehicle, escorted by fighters, the false policeman, found itself in one of the side streets in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning. The entire column was stopped under the guise of a tire malfunction. At that moment, the only real officer, the coachman, was overpowered, bound and thrown into the so-called kibitka, the carriage. This is when the 10 prisoners learned they were free. They had received weapons for the time of the escape, as well as false documents and money that would allow them to cross the border of the Russian partition. The men performing the operation followed. They immediately removed the Russian uniforms, dressed in civilian clothes, and, with false passports, crossed the border of the Russian partition and headed for the territory of the Austrian partition, the territory of Galicia.
W cywilne ubrania i również niezwłocznie z fałszywymi paszportami przekroczyli granicę zaboru rosyjskiego, kierując się na teren zaboru austriackiego, na teren Galicji.
So I can imagine it must be pretty shocking for some of the prisoners who thought they were being transported or facing execution and suddenly being freed by the prison guards. Do we have any examples of such stories or any testimonies of prisoners who have drastic reactions to it?
Cóż, jeśli chodzi o przebieg samej akcji, wiemy, że na samym początku, jeszcze w murach Pawiaka, jeden z więźniów próbował uciekać. Przekonany, że jedzie na śmierć. Bojowcy przebrani za policjantów musieli siłą obezwładnić i...
As for the course of the operation itself, we know that at the very beginning, still in Pawiak, one of the prisoners tried to escape, convinced that he was heading towards death. He had to be overpowered and was thrown into the prison van. When the whole group learned they were free, when the doors opened, when they heard not Russian but Polish sentences, they were primarily shocked. However, this shock quickly passed. They knew that time was of the essence, and they had to escape as soon as possible. Of course, they were to escape the borders of Warsaw, of the Kingdom of Poland. Here they could count on the help of the population of Warsaw, the inhabitants of Wola, who by majority were workers and supporters of parties whose representatives were those freed from captivity. We also know from Jan Jurgo-Żachowski himself, the commander of the operation, that a few days after its implementation, he was traveling by tram. Opposite to him sat an elegantly dressed gentleman who was looking at him quite closely. Gorzechowski then had the impression that he knew this man from somewhere. At one point he realized that this man was one of the prison officers, the one he had passed the falsified order to for the release of those 10 prisoners. At that moment, both men looked at each other, they bowed politely, and Jan Jurgo-Żachowski descended at the nearest stop, because he preferred to disappear into the crowd. In this way, he may have escaped detention, perhaps avoided arrest, and did not get placed inside the Pawiak walls himself.
Wolał rozpłynąć się w tłumie. W ten sposób być może uniknął zatrzymania, być może uniknął aresztowania i sam nie trafił w mury Pawiaka.
So I can imagine that freeing these 10 prisoners must be a very strong propaganda success for the Polish independence movement. And I was wondering what they did to further push this advantage.
Rzeczywiście uwolnienie owych 10...
Indeed, the release of these 10 prisoners, which could have been threatened with capital punishment, was a great success of the PPS militant organization. At the same time, it was a severe blow for the Russians, because it showed that even during the then prevailing martial law in the Kingdom of Poland, it was possible to release people threatened with death. It was possible to take them back from such a well-guarded place as the Pawiak. What is more, there were small purple posters in Warsaw saying that 10 prisoners from the Pawiak were stolen from the Tsarist rogues. This encouraging information worked extremely well for the residents of Warsaw, for people suffering under the Russian yoke, under the Russian occupation.
Rosyjskim jarzmem pod carską okupacją.
As we have seen today, the Pawiak prison is a place of special importance in Polish history. During the 4 years it was operated by the Germans, the level of brutality created an urge for revenge, which finally erupted on August 1st, 1944, the first day of the Warsaw Uprising. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
The Warsaw Uprising began on the 1st of August, 1944. 0 hour, or W hour, as they called it, was supposed to be at 5 o'clock. But the first outbreak of shooting began earlier in the day at Żoliborz, the northern suburb of Warsaw. That encounter, which began at 1:30 p.m., was the first skirmish of the Warsaw Uprising. As the saying goes, much has been written. Was it a good idea? Was it launched at the right time? Were there other opportunities? You may well ask. The fact remains that it did take place, and the people who took part in it were brave and beautiful. In the annals of uprisings against tyrannical rule, the Warsaw Uprising is unsurpassed. For 63 days, the Poles waited for the Russians to come across the river from the east and aid them in their rebellion against the Nazis. This did not happen. History has told us why. The Russians were quite happy to watch the Poles be destroyed by the Germans, rather than for the Poles to be free after World War II. There is no doubt about this. This was Stalin's plan. The Warsaw Uprising is indelible on the memory of the 20th century. At the Warsaw Uprising Museum, this history is set in stark terms. You're able to take a close look at those 63 days of fighting for freedom. This is an experience that will not leave you untouched. It will change the way you think about history of this time. And it will remind you of what a great capital Warsaw actually is. The city that stood against one of the greatest tyrannies the world has ever seen and rose again to become a modern leading city in Europe. The next series of episodes will take you through the history of the Warsaw Uprising. Thanks for watching.
Ola, this is a huge plane.
Yes, it's a one-to-one replica of American Liberator. Liberators were produced on a huge scale by Americans during World War II, and they were delivered on the basis of Lend-Lease agreement to the British forces. During the Warsaw Rising, such aircrafts, together with Halifaxes, would fly from the British air base in Brindisi, Italy, to Warsaw and back. They would make a 12-hour flight at night, very difficult, yes. Polish, British, Canadian, South African crews on board. When they reached Warsaw, they descended very, very low, and they flew at 100 feet to drop supplies. What was in those supplies? Weapons, ammunition, medical aid, food, everything we counted on so much because Warsaw was encircled by Germans, and this was the only way to help Polish people who were inside the burning city.
So why did they take off? I mean, they were in Brindisi. That's because that's where Americans' closest base was during the invasion of Italy. So they hadn't yet broken through to a higher position. But what about landing on this
the other
side?
On the
Why
other
couldn't
side,
they do
it
that?
was
Because
not possible because Stalin said no.
why would he do that to his allies?
Well, because
I thought he was a nice guy.
No.
I think there's a lot of people alive today who think communists were pretty good people.
No, communists were not nice.
Not really.
And we knew a lot about the niceties, yes, before the war and after. Unfortunately, Stalin had his own plan. He wanted to occupy Poland. He wanted to impose communism on our territory. And that's what he did, indeed, after the end of World War II. Yes. That's why he would say no to any airborne missions during World War II, during the Warsaw Rising. He said
Well,
yes.
also, he didn't like him at any time, but particularly during the Rising.
Yeah, in fact, he said yes only once to American mission called Frantic One, when 107 flying fortresses flew to Warsaw on September the 18th, and they dropped everything they had. But unfortunately, this mission was not that successful because only 20% of those airdrops were captured by Poles. 80% fell on the wrong side.
So we just moved the camera angle, as you'll notice, because we were blocking the stairway, and a lot of people, there's so many people here, we could not block a major junction for any longer. But at any rate, from this new perspective, let me ask you a new question. Why were the these liberators, this is not an original liberator, it's a replica, right?
Yeah.
But it's a scale replica.
Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
That's what we're These planes were flying from Brindisi in Italy. I mean, this is we said Spartacus before, that was the port he was trying to get to, so the pirates would take him away. So it's a long way away from Poland. So why are they flying, if they have allies in Russia, why are they flying all that way? Russia's a lot closer.
Russians were not that willing to help us, yes.
Oh,
of course.
so they're allies, but they're not willing to help.
Yeah, they were the allies of our allies, yes. And we need to remember that the Warsaw Rising starts because the Soviet army is just on the outskirts of Warsaw, about 20 miles from Warsaw. We heard the artillery, we heard the communiques through the radios. May 1 million inhabitants of Warsaw become 1 million soldiers. But the moment we started the Rising, they stopped their offensive. And they admired the spectacle of Warsaw being under
But
flames.
they didn't stop being offensive. It's really offensive behavior of the worst kind. So they did not aid the rebellion. And
they did not allow Allied aircraft to touch down on the airfields that were already in control by them, yes, on the other side of the Vistula River, just a 20-minute flight from Warsaw, yeah. So this is crazy, but that's what happened, yes. That's why those British, Canadian, South African and Polish pilots had to go to and fro without landing, yes. That's why
Which
so
is
many
a hideously
aircrafts,
long trip.
got lost,
And they got lost, they ran out of gas, or they ran out of fuel. But the trip from Brindisi to Warsaw, I mean, these were brave men. Because that is the longest flight of the war, actually. That's the longest continuous flight.
Yes.
So 500 and 500, right?
No, 1,000 one way. So about
It's 1,000 miles one way?
Wow.
Because it's 1,000 miles from Warsaw to London. So this is like
1,000 miles to Brindisi.
from Brindisi to Warsaw. It's 1,000 miles, so it's a long way. And they're doing a 2,000-mile flight. No wonder they were running out of fuel. What an incredible testament to their bravery. And then what an incredible testament to Russian perfidy that they did not back up their allies.
Eventually,
after all we did for them.
Eventually, in September, Soviet side decided to drop weapons, ammunition, medical aid. But the problem was that they...
We didn't do it, by the way.
But the problem is that they dropped it all without parachutes.
The Russians put aid in, but they didn't have parachutes, so this
so
like
it all got broken, yes, was destroyed.
It's going to be smashed, right?
Yes,
How low can you fly?
They would drop from 20 meters
20
in bags, in boxes.
Yeah, but they're
such
moving
valuable
fast. Yeah, too. So you got the speed of movement plus. I mean, you're
so
going.
I'm always asking visitors, did they
Yeah.
want to help us? Just an illusion of helping, yes. Propaganda reasons. We are
Russians-
helping Poles so much.
Oh,
so,
sure.
But as you said, perfidious, yes.
But I'm glad you know that word. What does it mean?
Perfidious,
Yeah.
full of perfidy.
Oh, which means? What is perfidy? Because I said it, but I wasn't sure what it meant. Maybe you can help me.
Malicious.
Okay, malicious.
Behavior. Yes.
You mean bad?
Yes.
I think we mean
extremely
bad.
Yeah.
Perfidy. No, perfidy is when they talk about really bad betrayal, isn't it? An evil betrayal, you know?
That's
a
it.
villainous kind of betrayal. Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Anyway, but that was the airplane.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned, because we are doing continuous series of episodes about the Warsaw Uprising in this week, beginning of August, to memorialize or to remember what took place how many years ago? 74 years ago?
75, exactly.
75 years ago. 75th anniversary. Okay, stay with us. Me and Ola from the Warsaw Uprising Museum.